Have you ever thought about a believer's spiritual journey from the very start to their ultimate destiny? What if it was all laid out in a single, unbreakable, four-step sequence? Well, we're about to dive into a really powerful interpretation of one Bible verse that suggests exactly that, an unbroken chain leading to a glorious destiny. Let's get right into it. So this one verse, Romans 8:30, is the foundation for this entire concept. Just look at the flow here. It's not a list of possibilities. It's presented like a chain where every single link is locked into the next. Predestination leads to calling, which leads to justification, which leads to glorification. It's an unbreakable, totally guaranteed sequence. So here they are, the four links in that chain. And look, these aren't just some dusty old theological terms. This is framed as a journey, a path that's already laid out. We're going to unpack each one of these, one link at a time, to see exactly how they all connect. Okay, let's start right at the beginning with the first two ideas, which are totally intertwined, predestination and the call. Now, that first word, predestination, I know it can be a pretty loaded and controversial term for a lot of people, but the way it's being interpreted here is very, very specific. So, how is predestination being defined in this context? Well, it's not about God pre-selecting certain individuals for salvation and ignoring others. Instead, it's the idea that God's plan was for anyone who hears the gospel to have that opportunity. The key distinction here is that the predestination happens through the gospel message itself, not as some separate event before it. So if predestination is the plan for people to hear the gospel, then what's the call? Well, it's not some separate mystical experience. The call is actually embedded inside the gospel message. This is why there's a command to preach it to everyone, everywhere. The call is universal because the message is meant for all. All right, let's move to the next link in the chain and see how this builds. Once a person responds to that call within the gospel, the very next step is justification. And this is presented as a huge turning point, a legal and spiritual verdict that honestly changes everything. So what does it actually mean to be justified? The definition is incredibly simple, but so powerful. It means to be acquitted, to be declared not guilty. I mean, picture a courtroom. The evidence is all there, but the judge looks at you and slams the gavel down, declaring you innocent. That's the picture that's being painted here. And here's the immediate result of that not guilty verdict. If you're acquitted, there can't be a sentence, right? No condemnation. This verse from earlier in the same chapter, Romans 8:1, just drives that point home. For someone who is justified, the threat of damnation is completely and totally removed. And that brings us to the final amazing link in this unbroken chain: glorification. Now, this isn't just about what happens after you die or going to heaven someday. The idea here is that it's something much more immediate, something that's happening right now. You see, the chain doesn't just stop with a not guilty verdict. The argument is that anyone who is justified is at the same time also glorified. And get this, it's not a future reward you have to wait for, it's a present reality. The believer is described as being actively endowed with and decorated in divine glory right here, right now. And to really hammer this idea home of a present tense glorification, the source material points to this prayer from Jesus. He says that the very same glory the Father gave to him, he has turned around and given to believers. It's presented as this shared glory, passed down directly. This makes glorification a current, lived experience, not a distant hope. Okay, so we've got this incredible four-step theological framework: predestined, called, justified, glorified. But so what? What do you actually do with that information? How does knowing this change anything in your day-to-day life? Let's dig into how this belief is meant to translate into real, concrete action. I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? This is where the rubber meets the road. Why does understanding all this actually matter when you wake up on a Tuesday morning and have to go to work? What's the practical application of this whole chain? And this is where we see that direct link between identity and action. The argument goes like this: if a believer's status is justified and glorified, then their practical stance in life should reflect that new reality. This means actively refusing things like weakness and sickness, not just through willpower, but because those things are seen as totally inconsistent with this new, glorified identity. So this isn't just about agreeing with an idea in your head. The goal is for this knowledge to sink in so deep that it becomes a consciousness, a fundamental way of thinking, seeing, and living in the world. It's about living in such a way that your very body becomes a magnifying glass for this glorified identity. So let's do a super quick recap of this unbroken chain. It all starts with being predestined to have the chance to hear the gospel. The call comes through that very message. Answering it means you are justified, declared not guilty. And because you're justified, you are also, right now, glorified, sharing in divine glory. And that really leaves us with one final and pretty powerful question to think about. If what you believe about your ultimate spiritual destiny can radically transform your current physical reality, what would change for you today if you truly saw yourself as part of this incredible, unbroken chain?